Okay, hello, good morning everybody, and happy Friday. Today we have a great webinar planned. Amanda, who is one of our AutoCAD and land effects gurus, will be going through some of the most common questions about land effects that we receive here at the office. She will also be showing off some lesser known tools that you may not know are available within land effects. So whether you are new to land effects or have been using it for years, you will likely be able to gain some valuable knowledge from this presentation. If you have any questions during this, there's a Q&A button located at the bottom of the window. We will be answering questions throughout the presentation in that window, but we'll also allow Amanda to answer some of the questions live after she's done with the presentation. Also, there is a chat box for general remarks and comments. And if you would like the Zoom window to not take up your whole screen, you can choose to exit full screen from the view options at the top. With that being said, I will hand the mic over to Amanda and hope you all enjoy the show.
Thanks, Paul. So yes, I am Amanda Berry. I've been using land effects for as an LA since 2009, a landscape architect since 2009. Now that I'm a usage tech and here at Land Effects and training other landscape architects, I have a good appreciation for what people don't realize is already available to them, whether they're using land effects already or even just looking into it. It's kind of a symptom of you don't tend to Google search for something you don't know exists. We have a lot of great items on the website. So this is going to be the ultimate know what you don't know webinar. As we kind of go through here, I'm going to show off some of the tools where I can, but I'm going to focus this webinar, the focus of this webinar is basically to introduce you to the tools that you might not know exists and point you in the right direction to find out how to change your workflow for the better. So I'm going to introduce them, not go into too much depth on them so that we can cover a lot of things. We've got about 40 minutes to show off these 20 things, some top questions, as well as top underused tools. So that leaves about 2 minutes per tip in order to leave ample time for questions at the end. So definitely gear up all of your questions in the Q&A box. And yeah, let's just jump into it. So the very first thing, right before we get to top 10 common questions, is actually how to find out things on your own. So to do that, what you can do over here, if we go into landeffects.com, just really simple on our website, there's a lot of resources to start learning a lot of things that you don't know. If you haven't already gone through it, these training resources on documentation, power tips, webinar recordings, everything. But if you just have a general question where you're like, I want to import a CSV file, you can go over here to support and go to our tech support page. And this will give you some ideas if you have a problem, but you can also go down here and search in here. So maybe I want to import a CSV. I can go in here, I get some items. So right here at the top, we have two great pages where you can see we have an import CSV command that goes through basically everything you need to know. So hey, there's one common question that is already answered right off the bat. But now you also know how you can go through our website and search for basically any term, color, and get all the information about color render and just start asking our website questions and start exploring that way. But let's move into top 10 common questions then in Land Effects itself. So if I go back out here into this drawing that I've kind of set up for today, let's start right in at common question number 1. So first one I always get is, I wish that plant callouts were multi-leaders. If you click on this, you can see that's a block and that's a separate leader, and it's a little harder to move them around. They kind of do that. There is actually a way to have that used as a multi-leader. I'll start off by saying why it's not a multi-leader. The issue is that with multi-leaders like this, where you can move it around like that. The issue is that while I can assign a block to where this text is, like we need for plant callouts actually can go both ways like this. And with multi-leaders, I can't actually assign 2 blocks. So that's just a limitation of the mleader tool, which is why we haven't made plant callouts true multi-leaders. But what we have done is created a tool in order to make them behave like multi-leaders. All you need to do is go over to FX planting, down to group label. And once you start running the group label command, you're probably used to it. You're going to go and start picking some plants. But if you actually look down here at the command line, it says you can also click a label to modify. So I can go ahead and click this label over here. The first thing it's going to ask me is first window point. And basically what it's asking me here is if I want to add any more shrubs. So maybe I added a 3rd shrub in here. I could actually add that to this label, but I can right click it or press enter to go past it. And now it's suddenly a multi-leader label that I can move around and click and place elsewhere. So you can label out your plans and then go back through it and clean things up as you need it. The next common question, can I save and use plants local to my area with all my settings instead of adding them from scratch each time? So what this means is if you go into your plant manager, you have your list of plants that you've added to this project. Let's make this a little bit smaller. And if you go and you click new, and let's go to, say you add a quercus. I'll just hit enter to search for that, quercus, and maybe something like Quercus agrifolia. That would be right here. And great, add that to the project, done. It's in my project, but if I edit that, everything in here is blank. And that's because when you first add a plant to a project from the new button, it all comes in blank, no size assigned, no cost, no symbol, nothing. Just the defaults that you can then go in and edit whatever you want. However, what you can do is actually start using templates, and you can pull this in. For instance, if I cancel out of here and I take that one and I delete that, yes, and then I go to import instead, I've set up a template right down here, maybe plants commercial. And in my template, I have all of these, including my Quercus agrifolia that I wanted. So I can add that to the project instead. You can also hold down the control key and pick a few, or you can hold down the shift key and pick a whole swath of them. But for right now, I'm just going to choose that one and click add to project, click done. There it is in my project. And if I edit that one, it has all the settings already in here. So you can even go in and change plant codes to be 4 letters instead of 6 letters, or change the common name to be your local common name, and save all of those into a template. And the way templates work is if I go over into a new drawing that's not assigned to any project, I looked at my project list. Here's my templates down at the bottom. I can save as a template using this button. I'm not going to go too far into it, but if I open this, this will come up. Templates can't be edited. You can only edit a template by saving it from a project. But if I go in here, there's all my plants that I'm pulling from. You would basically look more into templates on our website. I have a great webinar that you can search for, or like we showed before, you can just search for templates. Using plant templates is the webinar that you can go through, and it goes through all the ideas of how to start doing that with your plants. But if we go back, okay, so that's that one. Can I make a color rendered elevation? We get this a few times. Yes, you can. And so I've kind of started up an elevation line, and I've started to create my elevation over here by following basically the grading points to outline it, and done all my line work, just regular old line work. But then as you can see, what I've started to do over here is starting to add some elevation. So I'm going to cover a few things with this question. First, You can color render it, and I'll show that in a second, but you can also populate your sections and elevations in here by just going to the FX site ribbon, going down and looking at blocks. We have a lot of great blocks for you to choose from that apply to sections. So if I go here to elevation graphics, we can do things like add more people. We have a lot to choose from. Maybe this one over here to give some context to your site. You can also, under elevation graphics, let's see, we can go with some plants, maybe add a tree based on your plan. Oops, I clicked on shrubs. Add a tree, let's go with this one. And just kind of, maybe that tree is up here. And you just kind of scale it in. I'm in meters, so the scaling works a bit different, so I can grab that. That's just a block, so I'm going to scale it again. There we go, to be a bit more appropriate for my elevation. So you can quickly populate an elevation like this, and then what you can do is actually just turn on color render. All of the blocks that come in Land Effects in this elevation section are already colorized. So I go under Hatch, under FX Site, Site Color. I have all these color wheels to choose from, but you can see all of these are already colorized. I can actually change some of these colors if I want, like maybe I want this to be a nice bright red card to give some pop to the drawing. I can change that just like that. I just clicked on the color, clicked on the existing hatch in one of our blocks, and it changed. I can do that again, make it blue, click on the color, click on the hatch, it changes. So I can go through in here. You can also use site color on the rest of your drawing too. So I can go in here and really quickly kind of colorize this section. I'm just going to click inside. There we go. And so that will print really, really nicely with black and white with your CTB file. You can change any of these. You can turn color off and on as you work on it. So that's kind of the color sections, but as we kind of pull out, you can see I also use the same tool to color render the rest of my site as well, which is kind of going off of this number 3 question. But you can also, now that that color render is on, I've just used basically the same sort of thing of clicking colors and placing them. I can turn that off and on. I can also go into planting and go to color render. And I've already assigned color render symbols to my plants. I've assigned them to my reference notes. Sod, all of that. I can turn all of that on. And once I turn on this color render in here, you can see it kind of work. It's doing this, the hatches first at the bottom and then the larger trees so that the arrangement is correct. And then I'm just going to use a quick command called hatch to back. And that's going to fix, you can see all of my plan blocks that I added in here through reference notes. They are also color rendered. So very quickly, you can add a lot of color, not just to the section, but the rest of your plan. And the last thing I wanted to show with that section was actually something with discipline graphics. So I go over to here with FX Site. I go down to discipline graphics right here. And I'm actually going to go to callouts, and you can see we have section flags and section lines in here. So I can actually add a section flag like that, or maybe a double. Click, and I am just going to roughly click this in. It's already pre-scaled to the scale I have in Land Effects. I'll say my section is going that way, and maybe this is section A on sheet number L1. And I'm starting to get a section together. And we have another power tip on then how you can put this on a sheet, create a discipline graphic with a call out down here where you can link it to this section. Lots of things you can do with these sections. I can also then just really quickly, in order to do the rest of this, turn off all the color. I'm going to go into FX planting, turn off color, and we're back to black and white. So that was really quick. Moving on to number 4. Can I lock down my office standards? So if you've kind of looked into land effects or have been using it for a while, you know that if you go into your preference set up here, like your planting preferences, you have a lot of options that you can set in here, like your plant label, the arrow style, how the plant code comes in by default, things like your reference note division, your plant sizes. Everything in here is customizable in order to set an office standard, since these preference sets are project wide. Every project, if I cancel out of here, I'll show you where you can see this. If I go to my project manager, every project is set to a preference set. So you can have multiple preference sets if you want. They're just a way to control the standards on each project. But what can happen is if once you start rolling this out on a larger scale, especially office-wide in a larger firm, people might go in here who don't know enough about land effects and start changing things like automatically checking schedules to uppercase, and suddenly you run a schedule and it's all uppercase. I get a few of those calls every month. My schedule is uppercase. Well, somebody clicked on this button. But what you can do is actually manage this, and you can manage the permissions in your office for this preference set. So I can click on manage, and I have some options here. I can make this read only, or I can actually make it by user. And then I can set who the admin is on this. We'll say it's me. Only the admin can make changes. But I can also set who has read-write permissions. So I can uncheck write permissions on certain people in my office who I know don't know enough about land effects, or I could just make it so that only I have write access. And so you can look a bit more on this on our website on how that works, but you can also do the same with projects. Actually, sorry, if I go to Project Manager, I'm in FX Admin, Project Manager. And I go to manage or permissions, sorry, up at the top here. I have that by user option as well down here. But we'll keep it at rewrite for now. Say okay. I'll just make sure that I've set that back to read write. Oh, okay. Well, we'll just leave it like that for now. And we'll say okay. Okay, so that's, you can lock those down if you want. Number 5, can I edit the default layers that things come in on? So if I click on this, you can see all of our shrubs and land effects come in on the LP shrub layer. All of our trees come in on the LP tree layer. That's just for the block. Hatches come in on their own layer. And if I look at my layer property manager, LA, to open up my layer property manager, and kind of scroll down, I can see all of the layers that land effects sorts in here. So I get a question quite often, can I change these to match my office standard? This is usually a question that comes from newer users. The answer is yes, but I don't recommend it. And I'll show you what you can do. So if we go over to my general preferences, you can actually see a lot of these layers right here under general preferences. And you can go in here, like that one, and edit that. Came off just a little off screen. And you can edit the name here and change what color this one comes in on. For blocks, it really doesn't matter what color it comes in on, since we have layers inside blocks as well. I don't recommend changing these though, if you can help it, because there are some that where the commands for them are dependent on the layer name, meaning that in the back end, the actual command for it calls on the layer name specifically. And changing these can sometimes, like if you change L work area, that would make work areas in past projects not work anymore. So be very careful about that. Probably ask us if there's anything that you really need to change for whatever reason, but consider if maybe you can just keep it as is, because it's very standardized and we do tend to add layers without any notification. Especially these LK layers, they actually come from inside the block. If I explode this, that layer doesn't come from that list in the general preferences. It actually gets imported from inside the block. And that's so that we can have a hierarchy of line weights inside our blocks and keep that pretty fluid. that's kind of the answer. It's a yes, but you probably don't, you usually don't want to do that. Number 6, can I add this hatch to the available site hatches? I actually got asked this the other day. Let's close this. This probably should be in, and we are actually looking to add this in. What this means though is if you go to FX site and you go into reference notes, or you go into just placing a hatch using our tool where it scales automatically, it goes on the right layer, all of that, you might want to add to this list, and particularly extra paver hatches. My answer to this would be 1, let us know what hatch you're looking to add, especially this person who asked for this one, because this is actually an AutoCAD standard hatch. So that's pretty easy for us to add straight into the system for everybody to use. But you can also add this in yourself using, if I go to FX site and drop this down, using the Save Hatch tool. And just search for Save Hatch on our website. We do have a step-by-step guide on how to do it. It does take a few steps in order to save it incorrectly so that it comes in at the right scale properly, and so that the slide in this hatch dialog looks correct, just like these. If you make a mistake though, and you add in one into here that you actually don't want, I don't have any custom ones in here, but you can use the command delete hatch. This is a LandFX hidden command that we're going to go over in a bit. Delete hatch, you'll bring this up and you can delete any of these. Just note that if you delete a LandFX standard hatch, it will repopulate itself. So you can't actually delete those. You can only delete the ones that you add and made a mistake with. I think that's, you can also, if I go in here, another really quick kind of behind the scenes, you can edit one of these. So there's a lot of power with these hatches. If you add your own custom hatch and edit it, you can actually change things like what layer that hatch comes in on. If this is blank, then this one's going to come in on, if you're placing the hatch tool, whatever the current layer is, so right now layer 0, if you're placing a reference note, that'll come in on the LPAT 13 layer. You can actually put a layer in here, and anytime you place this hatch, it will come in on that specific layer. A lot of users have used that really awesome tool in order to standardize even more and have more color come in and standardize their layers. So just a few tips on that. Can I use shortcuts with LandFX commands? Number 7. And if you are asking this question, you are already awesome and you're using shortcut commands for the most part in your AutoCAD. It's a lot faster in terms of drafting. If you're a slave to the ribbon, or even worse, to toolbars, definitely get into this habit. But yes, you can add commands. Like for instance, I use the scale tool a lot. That's actually a LandFX tool, and I can add, there's no by default command for that, although in FX CAD, we added a few things. So if I go over here and search for 2018 shortcut, we have new keyboard shortcuts. You can look in here as to which ones got added with new shortcuts. It looks like, yep, I am correct. Our LandFX scale did not get added with a shortcut, although maybe I might do that on 2019. But you can actually set your own. So I can go into, on FX CAD 2018, I can go to Manage, go to Edit Aliases. You'll find this on your Express tool ribbon if you are not in FX CAD 2018, but I can add a new one and put in a LandFX command and maybe set it to something. And I can find that LandFX command if I go to keyboard commands. So if I type in keyboard commands or planting commands, we have a whole series of pages that basically list out the actual command for each one of our tools. So you can go down here to the scale, it's set draw scale, you can copy that and put it in here. I'm running a little bit short on time, so I'm not going to actually show you how to do that, but we have a great guide. If you search our website for alias, you will find the page on with all the steps on how to do this. Number 8, do my drawings get stored to the cloud? The answer is no. We do not store any of these actual physical DWG drawings. If I go over into, I can kind of show you how this works, because I know the cloud is a big question, and we do recommend people go over to cloud data. So let me show you really quickly. Whoops, there we go. A little thing about how that all works. So if I go cloud data, first off, versus local data, MySQL or now SQLite, we actually have a few versions of the cloud. So all of our plant irrigation and site manufacture blocks that you use, so those elevation blocks, they all actually come from landfx.com, which is technically a cloud. And that's where all those libraries come from. But then what LandFX does is it takes those blocks and saves it down from landfx.com onto your landfx folder. This is not on our cloud. So it could be on your server, or it could be on another cloud service like Google Drive. What LandFX does is it takes those blocks, it puts it into your drawing, and attaches it to data. So this data can either be also on your computer, or it can be in our cloud data. So normally when we talk about cloud, this is the one we're talking about, which is this cloud data. And that includes information like, if I go over here, like your plant palettes, all of that data in the plant manager, your irrigation equipment, your reference note, actual data, and your preference set that we talked about. It does not include any of the DWG files for the actual blocks for the trees, or the blocks for the irrigation, or those blocks for your reference notes. It just includes the data. So the roundabout answer to that question of do my drawings get stored on the cloud is no. We do not take any of your drawings, none of the details, none of these base plans, none of that. The only thing that is available on our cloud servers are our own blocks and the data that gets assigned to those blocks. But you can host all of this other information on your own cloud, like Google Drive or Dropbox or anything like that. So that's kind of the answer. If you want to know more about this, though, I really do suggest going through this page. Just search for cloud on that toolbar, and you'll get a lot of things like breaking it down into the little bits of how you can do it. Because once you start moving into the cloud, you basically get to do what this guy's doing and go from site to site, as long as you have an internet connection, even just a tether to your phone. It works great. Moving on, number 9. But then how do I share my LandFX project data with another user? So if your data is on the cloud, like mine actually is, the data that is in, let's see, in these projects, in this project list, is actually, that's all in the LandFX cloud for cloud data. And this can be shared with anybody in your office, including those offsite. So it's not actually linked to a network server or anything. But if you are sharing that data, if you want to share the data on your plan with another LandFX user who has a different license than you, that cloud data, this list, does not get shared between 2 licensed users. So you might do the planting project and you have a separate irrigation specialist who works on the irrigation plans also using LandFX, and you want to share the plant data so that your irrigation specialist can work off of that with the irrigation tools. If you just send them this working drawing DWG and they go to FX planting and they click edit plant, or pull up the plant manager, this plant manager is going to be blank. So you want to send that information over to them. You can do that, you just need to do it manually. What you need to do is go over to FX admin, go to project list, go to backup. So the task behind this is backing up and restoring. So you go to backup, you want to back up this to a LandFX file, say okay, it's going to ask you where you want to save this, so you can save it to your desktop like that. But basically it's going to save this .lfx file. And then what you're going to send that LFX file to the other person, and they're going to open up this same LFX projects window, click on restore, and they're going to import that. We do have a page on all of these steps on how to do it, but that needs to happen. And just know that if you share this back and forth, it's no longer dynamic. So really only one person can work on it at a time. So if your irrigation specialist is working on it, just try not to add anything in terms of project details. And when they send it back to you, make sure they send it with this LFX file. You'll probably also need to share the preference set. So you'll want to go to manage, and you'll want to back up this preference set as well, so that they know all of your font standards and all of your color standards. Moving on to our last of our common questions before we get into underused tools. Can I assign the same simple symbol to everything? The answer, as you can see here, is yes. However, I don't recommend it, and I say that as somebody who used to do this. It's a holdover, in my opinion, from when it was hard to use different symbols for everything because things were manual. But now with LandFX, all you really need to do is you can even just edit a plant, click on this, and choose a completely different symbol that looks very unique, and it's just that fast. So it's kind of, I would recommend against it, because having all of these different symbols, especially if some of these smaller symbols start to be the same size and you have many different species, it can become a very hard plan to read, as opposed to this one over here, which becomes a very easy plan to read, as opposed to if it was all circles. So yes, LandFX can tell different plants apart, even if they're using assigned to the exact same symbol. Okay, so those are basically all of our common questions. Let's go over some of the top 10 underused tools before we get into your questions. And as we kind of go through these, I know that there are some questions filtering in. Make sure to line those up in the Q&A box, and we will be getting to those in about 10 minutes. So, very first one, most underused tool, I would say, would be the highlight tools. I originally in this list was actually that multi-leader tool for this, but I decided to make that a question. So below that, I would say highlight tools are least used, but very, very helpful. And this is for planting and site, and actually irrigation as well. We're not covering too much irrigation today, because as soon as we add that in, it becomes a whole nother webinar, a whole nother hour. So we're focusing mostly on planting, site details, and admin. But just know that highlight tools are there in irrigation as well. And what you can do is, let's kind of go over into this plan. So if I open up my plant manager and say go to a shrub, and down here, let's say I highlight my Stella d'Oro daylily, and I highlight that one. You can see everywhere in the plan that it is occurring. So it really is only in this area. But if I go out, you can also see that it's also occurring over here off in space. So if you're having some problems with, you're finding a discrepancy in the schedule, usually the schedule is actually right, and it's a problem with the drawing. So what you can do here, if you can't actually see, if it's not this convenient and it's actually further out, but you're thinking there's a discrepancy, you can actually highlight this. And then once you do the highlight plant option, you can see, let's do that again, sorry. You can see in here, you also have some other options in here. So I can select, and that selects these plants, and I can deselect, and I can see I still have one block reference selected. That's this little guy over here. So I can be like, well, I don't have any other daylilies in here, so I'm just going to delete that. I just hit the delete key. So it's gone now. If I highlight those and select, it's really only these guys and if I deselect, holding down Shift and a crossing select, there's no selection. So I know that's all okay now. I can also go ahead and use the highlight for other kind of interesting ways. I can go to highlight and select additional similar plants. So let's hit the A key, which is the blue letter here. And you can see I can highlight 39 other annuals or perennials, so other plants in this annuals perennials subcategory of shrubs. So let's go ahead and highlight those. I can see where all the annuals and perennials are in my plan. So it's a really great tool. I use it for calling things out, whatever you want. If you right click here, it will turn off the highlight or hit enter. If I escape, it will keep the highlight on and I can go ahead and start calling all these groups of plants out. And then I can always hit the highlight tool up from the ribbon and that will turn it off. If I right click, it's now all turned off. I can also use this highlight tool from the ribbon to highlight other plants directly in this in here. And I can also do this if I go into FX Site, use the highlight tool to highlight things like my reference notes as well. So that's the first one, is that highlight tools. The second one is we've been talking about reference notes over here, and another kind of common question, but also an underused tool is, yes, there are tools for hardscapes. So you can see I've kind of done some hardscape hatches here. These are actually smart hatches. If I go to FX Site and I edit that hatch with this edit object, I can see that this is attached to a reference note. So reference notes can be areas and volumes. They can be lengths assigned to a layer. So it counts up all polylines, lines, and arcs on a certain layer. They can be amenity items, which are basically any block. So you can count umbrellas, you can count bike racks, you can count people if you want to. You can also do notation items, which are just notes. They have no quantity attached to them. You just call them out and they populate themselves in the schedule. So if I cancel out that, you can see it's just like the planting manager over here. It's the reference note manager. You can see I have a whole palette already going for everything. And I've actually gone over here and started calling them out. So I can call them out just like plants as well. And I can run a schedule just like plants. I can do code, symbol, or both. Lots of options, including cost. I can say okay and run that schedule very quickly, just like my planting items, and even get a total cost estimate if I want to. So definitely a lot of people don't realize that that's sitting right there, and it's available in pretty much every license that we sell. Design FX, Planting FX, and Irrigation FX all have those tools. The next one would be related to this. If you have figured out reference notes, but you want to add more information to something like this, to one of these items in here, you can actually use user fields. So if I go down here to, let's see, this 1292, I want to go to the 06 one. So something like that. You can see here what I've done is put the color directly in the note. What I can actually do, if I just copy that, I can use the user field. User fields only come up if you have a division set. So you notice when we edited all of these other reference notes, user fields didn't come up, and that's because they were just set to a number and not a division. Once you set it to a division, you can start adding fields like, let's say, color. I'll say, okay, that adds it in here. I can now have my blue-gray color there, and this will pop up in your schedule. I won't show it now because we're going through a lot of things, but just know that that's available if you want to explore it a little further. The next one is a really powerful tool that got added or actually improved recently, and that is our spot elevation tool. So if I go over here, we have a few simple grading tools that make life a lot easier. I'm going to go over to Site Callouts, drop that down, and you'll see spot elevation right here under the FX Site ribbon. I also have a slope callout. If I click on spot elevation, the first thing it wants is an arrow point, so let me snap that, and I can put in an elevation. Let's say this is just going to be 100 and finish grade. And I have some styles I can choose from existing to proposed. So I can choose a different style like this one. I can say okay. And you can also see you can have additional points in here. So you could have, this could be top of curb, bottom of curb, or even inverts and a rim elevation for a catch basin. So I'm just gonna say okay. And I can plot that in and it comes in to scale entirely appropriately. I can then go back into spot elevation and I have some other options. So I can continue from last, C for continue to last, and I can start going nuts. Let's say 2% up, slope follows a polyline and place a spot elevation every 20 meters of a horizontal distance. Let's do this. There was a polyline there when I prepared this drawing. Okay, so it seems like that polyline got deleted, so I'm going to show you another few tools of how I got that polyline there to begin with. Super secret command, this is actually an AutoCAD command, and copy. Let's go there, there, there. I'm actually glad that that broke because now I get to show you that. I'm going to right click, 0, 0 as a base point, 0, 0 as a location point, and now I have that line from the XREF in this drawing on its layer from the XREF, and I'm going to use the LandFX command, superjoin. And basically what superjoin is you click on a polyline and it connects all polylines in the entire drawing on that layer. And it's a joined polyline. Great, now I can use this tool. Over here, continue from last, 2% up, follows the polyline every 20 meters. Okay, click on here and there we go. And I have a graded line. I can then finish this off over here with another continue from last. Say 2%, follows a straight line, and I'll just click it up here. There you go. Very quick. And you can also then go ahead and do slope callouts. These are on a non-plot layer, so I can just click these, and that puts a slope callout on a plot layer. So you can grab that and kind of move it around. Let's move on to saving a dimension style. So in here, I can kind of put in dimension styles like this, just using our dimension tools. It automatically places in here. And if you haven't saved a dimension style in before, when you first place it, it's going to ask you if you want to use our default dimension styles. But maybe this isn't exactly what you want. What you can actually do is follow our guide online, and then what you're going to do is go to dim style. You're going to find that dimension style that got placed here. It's this one. You're going to modify it, and you can modify it to whatever you want, like even say arrows instead of ticks. And then what you can do is go into your preferences under general and go to save dim style. If this is not checked, you don't have a style saved. So you can go ahead and save this one for site meters. You can also save different styles for details or different units. So check out our website on steps on how to do all of that. You can also, let's go into another seldom used tool that everybody ends up asking about is work areas. So what work areas are is a way to differentiate items on your drawing. So if I go to plant items under manager and just run a schedule, I'm just going to accept my defaults for now and place that down. It does a schedule of the entire plan, but maybe I just want a schedule of, say, just some items in here. So I can go in and let's go and grab that. I'm just going to add a few shrubs, just these 3 shrubs. I can go into new work area under here under FX planting. It asks you for a title. I can go ahead and click, let's say, I'll just do a test. You can add a suffix in here, test, and say, okay, pull that in. Great. And now if I run a schedule, It'll now ask me if I want to regenerate the existing schedule. I say no, I want a new one. Okay. Now it's asking me if I want to select a work area because it knows there's a work area in here, and I can go ahead and place that schedule instead, and it's just of those 3 plants. You can also use work areas to differentiate scales in your drawing, like maybe that area in particular is going to be a blow up of the plan and it's just going to be 1 to 50. You can assign that, and now any call out that I do in here, I know I'm going a little fast, but just to kind of show you, it's a totally different scale. It's going to look the same size at 1 to 50 though. You can do it for hatches. I also did a prefix on this work area, and you can see this layer or this label actually got put onto that test prefix layer. So you can now use that to freeze, viewport freeze different labels in different areas. Really, really powerful tool, work areas. Definitely look into it. We have an entire webinar dedicated to it. Really quick one is X-hair angle or crosshair angle. It's actually this tool right here in FXCAD 2018. I added it to the quick access toolbar. You can also find it under FX site under X-hair angle, and you can actually find it in a few other commands. So if I click on this and then click on any line in my drawing, it changes my crosshairs so I can actually draw on that. So if I do a polyline now, oops, polyline, click here and then turn on ortho, I'm now going along that area instead. I can also use this when I'm placing plants, like in paint mode tool. If I go into here and turn on T for paint mode tool, and it's going to start placing it on a regular crosshair. But if I wanted to press X under keyboard commands, X for X-hair angle, I can choose a different lineup, and now it's going to do paint mode along that axis instead. So lots of different areas you can use this X-hair angle, and then I can just click it, right click, and I'm back to normal. I have, let's see, just a few more. One is UCS. Also, if you're kind of going along that line, maybe you want to change the entire view, you can use new UCS. And I'm just going to do this really quickly. I'm going to specify a base point. I'm going to specify a line. I'm going to specify an up direction. And I can even assign this to a work area. And it changes my whole view to align with that. So now if I place a label, it will align with my new UCS. So I can use this tool very quickly to go, I can restore a UCS and go, I can either pick it from a work area or I can right click to pick it from the list. So I can go back to my regular world one for my entire drawing, or I can go back to my work area one by clicking my work area. I'm gonna go back to my SketchUp one, which is my regular world one for this drawing. And then you can even use that restore within a viewport to actually reorient the viewport to a work area now that I've assigned that UCS to a work area. Again, we have a whole webinar on just how to use work areas and UCS tools and scale, all of that. The second last thing I wanted to go over before we get into questions was some of the hidden commands, and I'm just going to show you them. So we have a list of hidden commands that are not on the toolbar or the ribbons. And let's go over here, not keyboard commands, secret commands. Secret keyboard commands is the one. And they're just called secret because they're not actually a tool on the ribbon, and they're a little lesser used, but as we go through the list, you can probably see some that you would definitely use in your workflow. Del Reg Apps, that is actually a Land FX only. A lot of you use it. It's not actually in an AutoCAD. It's a way to delete registered applications that usually cause a lot of bloat and slowdown in your drawing. That import CSV is a hidden command. As well as things like PRG. If you haven't used it yet, it's a single click or it's a single command. Just type in PRG. It purges, I believe it's about 3 times, and it does the whole nested objects, everything. It doesn't ask you anything. It just purges out the entire drawing. As well as text to a trib, We use these all the time when you're trying to make attributes in any block, and that is a land effects only command. So go through here and see if there's any that you can start using to make life a little easier. The last thing I kind of wanted to go over, we don't have too much time, so I'm just going to highlight it, is detail tools. Pretty much detailed tools in general are not used enough based on the power that they offer. And really quickly, you can, I'm going to just start let's go with ACAD ISO. I can start a millimeters drawing or an inches drawing. Go check the units. I can import, say from FX site, we'll go into blocks, I'll get an elevation graphic, and we'll just grab a really intricate looking bench, like that. I can make a detail of this. You can save in your own details this way. Under FX details, I can place a template. I'm going to go with metric, okay. That's a bit big, so I'm going to make that a bit smaller. There we go, or maybe a bit bigger. Let's do that. Set a template. Now that a template's around here, I can do a lot of things. I can add dimensions that are already to scale, like that. I can do an enlargement really quickly. That is accurate for dimensions. I can also, I can add a lot more items to here, but at the end of the day, like hatches that are automatically scaled, I can then save this detail. We'll go into here. Save it in, lots of things you can do. I'll just save that. I can go into this, go to my details page, go to my details manager, add that detail in. Place that detail in. We'll call this D4. It's already scaled. Any hatches would be scaled as well. I can then go ahead and go into my hardscape plan and start just calling out that bench with a smart call out. Let's grab that D4 bench. Okay. This one, we'll call this L2. And you can tell I'm going pretty quick here. But just so you get the essence of the power of what you can do here, is place a detail callout. You can move this detail around. This detail callout will update. It's very, very powerful, and it's very underused tool. But I kind of want to pass it off to you guys because I know there's a few questions that have been coming in, quite a few. So let's go into those. Maybe we can show off a few things. Maybe if you want to use the chat tool as well to share with other viewers, maybe tools that you've learned recently. Or if you want me to show something again that I kind of went over, because I know we did go very quickly in order to fit in a lot of things. But Paul, was there anything that we can kind of go over?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of questions coming in. I think we're doing a pretty good job of fielding those, but it's one that we do get a lot. And I kind of wanted to hand this off to you to answer so that everyone can get it, is Win asked if it's possible to change the order in which the schedule is created. Basically, she wants to know if the quantity can be on the leftmost column, or how much, customization there is on that.
Over here. Yeah.
Yeah. One of their options.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities to customize things, but in order to make the tool as simple as possible, and as powerful as it is without being over complicated, we do have some limits. So if you go into these schedule options, you can put the quantity before the name, which will put it after the code, but no, there is no way to move it all the way to the very, very front. It will either go to the end, like it is over here, right before detail and remarks, or it will be before the name, in between the code and the name. If you wanted it at the very, very front, you could put none for simpler code. But I mean, what you can always do if that's really, really a big holdup, you can always click on this. This is just a block reference. You can right click, you can edit this block, and you can manually move that quantity all the way to the beginning. And while I do say that, I mean, if once you regenerate the schedule, it won't respect that. I do understand that. It will go right on back to where it was before. However, you are still saving a lot of time. Even if you have to go in here and move that quantity column to the beginning every single time you run a schedule, because that's very important to you, you still are saving a day, basically, in creating this plant schedule, and you're just spending an extra 5 or 10 minutes to edit it to be exactly how you want it to be. So there's that trade-off, and at that point, we kind of say it's mostly up to you at that point on if the time to put that quantity all the way to the beginning is worth it for you. Go for it, edit it. But kind of weigh that against that 5 to 10 minutes you would spend every time you run a schedule on if it's actually worth it for you. If it is, go ahead and do it.
Okay, and let's see. Brian asked if he can include the quantity and the name when labeling reference notes. So instead of just having the number for the reference notes in the callout.
That is a wish list item. A very good one that we are working on is the option to have that name and quantity in here. What you can do, which I've done in the past, is what you can actually assign a reference or a detail, like a bench, to a bench reference note. If you edit the reference note, you can see that option to assign a detail. And then when you call out that detail, if I grab, let's just grab this bike rack, okay. And let's go to options. I right click to get to options. You can include the detailed title. You can also include the reference note. So if I had a reference note assigned to that detail, it would actually put a call out, a reference note call out just below it right here. So then at least you get the title. And I use that a lot on my plans. I actually, on my plans, usually exclusively use detail callouts as opposed to reference note callouts.
Okay. And then as you were going over ref notes, a question came in for planting schedules. Kyle asks if you can change the display order of the placement on the legend where the symbols are listed. So like you could have trees before, or existing trees before trees, and then palms. Like basically, can you change the row order of trees?
To an extent, yes, you can. You can't change the overall tree, shrub area ground cover. However, what you can do is in your schedule options, schedule options, you can just run a schedule for shrubs and then kind of place them down however you want. Or you can run this schedule and then view it through a viewport on your layout space in order to arrange them however you want. Just keeping in mind though, you can see it down here, I also have annuals, perennials. The system will put subcategories into the schedule as its own, as if it were a category. So you saw those under, oops, not schedule. There. Under shrubs, you saw these subcategories there. That's these subcategories here that you can organize plants into and start to basically manipulate it however you want. A little bit more manually, but still very, very fast. I think probably time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions.
Okay, we just have one more that I don't know if you wanted to say anything on this or not, but Tamara asked if Land Effects will have a Revit package someday.
Sorry, repeat that?
She asked if there's going to be a Revit package someday.
There is. I'll say that.
Okay.
It's in progress. And we have, as you've probably seen in our newsletter and on the forums, we've released a Rhino plugin. And with that, of course, Revit is a natural next step, and we are working on that as well. in terms of how far we'll go with it, that's still under development.
Okay, I think.
Yeah, I'm looking through some of the questions, and there were a lot of really great feature requests, I think, that were coming in here. So I want to tell everybody we've been listening to them, and if there's any that we need to follow up on, we will reach out to you. You can also send in a ticket with additional questions. Just go over into your land effects, go down to help, click on support, send in your questions. If they didn't get answered here, we can absolutely answer them through our technical support process. But thank you all for coming, and keep those questions flowing.